What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Jesse of Stick to Your Guns. So great to have you on here. We've wanted you on the show for so long, so great to finally make this happen. Thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to be able to talk with you. Keep Planting Flowers, the new album, First Things Always First. Was the intention to kind of like make just sort of like a continuation or a sequel or just pick up where you left off after Spectre, or with, the New Deal in the works and all this, this is meant to kind of signify like a new beginning for Stick to Your Guns?
I think it's a new beginning by going backwards, kind of. And I think, so far we over the two songs we've released, I think a lot of people have like kind of noticed it's like very Diamond-esque and I think that we had just done all that like Diamond 10-year anniversary record touring, so it's like we basically spent 2 years straight playing all those Diamond songs. So we were kind of talking about how funny it was that we were in Diamond mode on tour, and then it kind of like ended up kind of subconsciously bleeding into our new record as well, which I don't think by any means is like is a bad thing. If anything, it's like, I don't know, we all feel so connected to the album again, and to the music again, where it's like, I think Spectre for a lot of people was such a weird hit or miss album. It was the first album that like we released, obviously coming out of the pandemic or whatever, and there's a lot of people who they either find it very polarizing or they didn't even know that it happened. And so it's like we're looking to kind of like replant ourselves back into our music world that we feel like we've been kind of maybe on the outside of a little bit,
Is that the meaning of the album title, Keep Planting Flowers? I know, because I normally refrain from asking what does the record name mean, because
sure,
because it's like so cliche. But with a title like that, I almost feel like Keep Planting Flowers, it like has sort of like maybe I just smoked way too much weed when the album was announced and I overthought the title completely, but like Keep Planting Flowers means as a statement like go kick rocks in a way, or it almost means like chasing rainbows. It kind of has a sort of metaphorical saying behind it. So is there a meaning behind that title?
Yeah, sure. I guess for me, Keep Planting Flowers is like what the message I'm trying to relay is like, I think we can all to varying degrees kind of agree that like the world is kind of like a fucking clown show right now, and I think that there's a lot of people from different walks of life. I mean, we've done Southeast Asia, we've done Australia, we've done all over Europe, we've done we've been everywhere. We've played every continent with the exception of Australia or Antarctica. And so it's like we've been fairly far and wide, and I think a lot of people, they are finding, especially working people, are finding their day-to-day lives becoming harder and harder. And I think a lot of people are kind of like starting to search for answers in other places. And I think we can all kind of agree that like, I mean, I don't want to seem like a pessimist or whatever, but it's like I said, it's like kind of a shit show. But the message that I want to relay is like, regardless of all of that, like we can't resort to falling into like nihilism. And I think that no matter what, we just gotta like keep going. You know what I mean? It's just like you got to keep trying to like doing beautiful things and trying to live a beautiful life, and like trying to like exhume something positive in a world where it gives you absolutely no reason to do so. You know what I'm saying?
So it almost seems like when I listen to the songs that you release and I look at that title, it almost it really is like a very complex and epic way of saying there are good times, there are bad times. You could either find it within yourself to push onward. The only other option is succumbing to the pressures of life and becoming so disillusioned with all that reality has to offer.
Right. And also just like kind of pushing against the cliche, especially like for me personally, it's like I don't really necessarily have an interest of making a record or talking about things that like everybody agrees with. So I kind of write about the only thing I know. And I 6 years ago started, I was a 16-year-old kid, you know what I mean? And a couple of days ago, I turned 37. So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and write the same kind of like, yeah, my friends have my back and all this kind of records that you write when you're a kid. I'm going to talk about the perspective of the things I'm going through now. And all I can hope is that other people feel that feel me on those types of things. So it's like, personally, I think pushing back against the narrative of like, oh, when you get older, you'll just become a more bitter kind of like shitty person or whatever. There's like this classic narrative of that, like life just beats the fucking joy out of us, and it's like I can't, I don't want that to happen to me. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people around me who that happens to, and it's like I fall in and out of that, no doubt. You know what I mean? Like I think it would be you'd have to be superhuman not to fall into like a negative spiral every once in a while. But it's like ultimately, I'm trying to be the kind of person who it's like, yeah, just kind of just I see it. I see all of it. Mm-hmm. Everything you're trying to show me about the world and how it sucks, I see every inch of it. And all I can do to combat that is keep planting flowers, so to speak, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, being that Stick to Your Guns, not to pigeonhole you guys by any means, but being a hardcore band in that regards, like, and I feel like hardcore is just as much of an adjective as it is a noun, and it's just as much of a verb in a way. But like one thing that I think ties every hardcore band together, whether it's like a newer band like Knocked Loose or Code Orange, or a band like Sick of It All or Cro-Mags in a way, they do have a similar lyrical subject matter of having my back, about camaraderie and integrity and intended. Like it has all of those sort of modes behind it. So I feel like there aren't like, is there a hardcore band that has the lyrics of something like Tool, for example? The subconscious will intrigue my heart, enlightening myself into the cosmos of humanity. Like, I feel like it doesn't work that well. So I almost feel like with the hardcore band, there is a lot of external and personal stuff that's in it, but there is sort of like a grid that has to be followed within that?
I mean, I suppose. I mean, I think like when you have to think about like what you're trying to explain, what hardcore music is ultimately trying to express, and that's like a person's anger or frustration. You know what I mean? And so it's like typically people get angry and frustrated or overwhelmed generally about the same kind of things. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like hardcore is so specifically about like X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Because it's like, relatable. Anger is a relatable thing, and normally we associate anger with a specific type of thing. Having said that, I think you would be very interested in like Krishnacore, like Krishna hardcore bands, like Hare Krishna bands, like 108 and Shelter and things like that. They definitely have more of like the spiritual type of
well, that's how you get metalcore, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always said that they should like make a hardcore album where they do like, and I'm not talking like pop goes punk. I'm talking like a real like do Goo Goo Dolls, but in a hardcore. It's like I don't want the world to see me. I just want you to know who I am. And then when you really do it, if you sing anything in a Jamie Josta voice, it makes any lyric sound hardcore. So
yes, it does.
So I, shout out to
great idea.
What'd you say?
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Speaking of saying moving forward by going backwards, but next year is gonna mark an important year for Stick to Your Guns, as it's the 20-year anniversary of the debut. For what it's worth, now I think that is. I want to kind of go back in a way because we all change. Like, one thing that I would always say is like the hardest thing for a hardcore musician is, we're all kids when we start these bands. We're 15, 16 years old. And anybody who tells you that they're the same person at 37 is lying to you when they're a hardcore kid. But I'm wondering, is there a part of you, for what it's worth, that you continuously bring with you that we would later see on Comes From the Heart and the Hope Division and Diamond, etc.? And what was your sort of mentality, back when you were 16? I was like maybe 11 when that record came out or something. So
I mean, like you're in a weird way, if you were to go back and like listen to it, it's like it's a weird kind of like study of like my life. You know what I mean? Because I was literally growing up as all these albums were happening, and I eventually later dropped out of high school to go like on tour, and I was living on my own at that age, and like, you know what I mean? It was just like, it was a weird, crazy thing. So it's like you can listen to the different stylistic choices that we've made over our 20-year career, and it kind of just like reflects the anxiety and chaos that was my life, and just trying to like navigate how to figure out how to be an adult. You know what I mean? And that was the weird thing too. It's like you listen to the first album, you can tell that's not a bunch of kids who think that they're going to be a professional band. You know what I mean? It's maybe a notch more than just plain out, flat out nonsense. So, you know, you can see like all of a sudden, then it turns into like, oh wait, this might be like my job, and then we make weird choices of like, oh yeah, we're gonna have songs that are like more rock sounding, and it's like less heavy because the label wants a song with reach and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, you can see the like ADHD of Stick to Your Guns. It kind of is almost the exact same type of ADHD of my personality and my who I am as a as a person. You know what I mean?
Well,
so yeah.
Well, I've always said that a band's discography is like the best representation of how time is sort of relative, because I was a late bloomer with Stick to Your Guns. I didn't discover you guys until Disobedient was out, until you were like, well,
sure,
for that cycle.
Makes me happy. Hell yeah.
So, but then when but then I became a fan and then went back and listened to Diamond and the Hope Division, etc. So for what it's worth, doesn't take me back to 2005 when I was in elementary school. It takes me back to 2015, more or less, where, you know, I'm more of an adult. So I think it's interesting how that takes you back to your 16-year-old mindset. For me, that album takes you back to my 21-year-old mindset.
Yeah, sure. Two very different things, you know what I mean?
As a vocalist, have you always needed to hear the music before you came up with the lyrics? Or does the lyrical concept, or like the sort of lyrical idea or whatnot, determine the music itself in a way?
I start with little like one-liners, a thought or something, you know what I mean? Or I'll be reading whatever, you know. I own and operate a bookstore in Los Angeles, so I'll be reading whatever kind of thing, and like that'll make me think of something, and then I'll jot down a thought or a question about something, you know what I mean, whatever, and then that will kind of like be the subject matter, and it branches out from that, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily like I don't write how you read, you know what I mean? It's not like left, right, top. It's like it's subject matter, and then it branches out in a million directions, and then I have to. It's like that's how the brain works. At least that's my personal process. You know what I mean? And so yeah,
working in a bookstore.
But the music helps for sure. The music helps the placement of the things for sure.
Music is working in a bookstore. You're surrounded by a sea of inspiration. I can only see you going like overload with information.
Right.
Depending on what you're singing about, if it's something for more of an external source of inspiration versus something that's more personal in a way, does it maybe resonate with you differently, or does it channel a different energy depending on the lyrical content?
Say that. Sorry, can you repeat the first part of the question? I apologize.
Yeah, depending on like what you're singing about, if it's more personal or more like external, if you will, or anything like that. Depending on what you're singing about, does that resonate with you differently, or do you channel a different energy into it? Or in the end, you're the vocalist to Stick to Your Guns. It all has the same method.
Totally. No. That's a good question. Like, I think because like Stick to Your Guns, although like you coming from more of like a metal world, like you would consider Stick to Your Guns a straightforward hardcore band, whereas like a lot of hardcore people probably wouldn't. So it's like, or you know, we probably fall somewhere in metal, more closer to like metalcore or whatever. Yeah. But at the same, so we have different kind of like tonal shifts that maybe like the average straightforward hardcore band maybe might not. And I'm speaking only in generalities. You know what I mean? A lot of hardcore bands do, but we might have tonal shifts in the way that a generic hardcore band might not. So like if it sounds a little bit more, you know, like melancholic or whatever, that I tend to go inward. That's like, this is gonna be a personal one, or like about something personal, like family or whatever. And then if it's straightforward, fast and heavy and whatever, that's obviously more like a angry type of like anthemic, like fuck yeah, let's go. You know,
the darkness that you sometimes express within it, because whether it is, you know, the deteriorating aspects of the world, or maybe your own personal trials and tribulations, sometimes, you know, having this art and this medium is always a great release to have. It's very cathartic. But do you find that maybe sometimes we could become victimized by our own products, and maybe when you have to look inward and experience those darker themes, that maybe makes the songwriting more deteriorating than cathartic?
Sure. No, there's like I mean, a lot of people talk about that, how like there's this song by the band Cursive called Art is Hard, and it's basically talking about how artists like try to like almost like set themselves up to like they set themselves up, put themselves in positions of misery on purpose, so that they have like material for their artwork, you know what I mean? And it's like this weird fucked up process that I think a lot of people have. But I really think when it comes down to a person, it's like a person to person type of thing. Like for me, always thinking, you know, a lot of people do say that, like, well, if you're always talking about how bad the world is, like, isn't that just going to keep the world bad or whatever? And it's like, I think that's kind of almost like a disingenuous way of looking at it, because I think if you were to actually examine the songs of Stick to Your Guns, it's not so much like the world sucks, fuck it, you know what I mean? It's more like, yo, like there's a lot of people suffering in ways that are needless, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to like say that the world should be baby proof. I'm not like some type of like utopian person. I'm just trying to say, like, you know, there's very basic aspects of our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day things that we can make better as people if we just cared a little more. And so that's really all the message is. It's just like, it's more so just like treat your neighbor good and like try to be like accountable to your community. And like, I don't know, that's really all I'm trying to get at, you know?
Well,
ultimately.
I think it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing, because like
Sure.
I'm sure people have probably criticized you on social media or asked, why are you guys so negative? All you sing about is negativity. But let's say hypothetically, all you sang about was camaraderie. I'm not talking like, you know, rainbows and smiley faces, but it was all about camaraderie. It was all about working together. You were essentially, you know, John Lennon as a hardcore band in a way, where all you need is love.
Right.
I'm pretty sure people would criticize you guys for being fake or disingenuine at the same time.
Well, yeah, there's such thing as toxic positivity too, you know?
Thank you.
I don't want, let's not, I don't like to try to beat around the bush. I like to kind of just like, there's that Chris Christopherson song where he says, try to tell the truth and hold your ground. Don't let the bastards get you down.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's really all, that's like my life's motto, is just try to tell the truth and hold your ground. And just also at the same time, see the beauty that exists around it, you know? Because for me, getting that frustration out and having an outlet like Stick to Your Guns is a good thing for me to have. It's like a pressure valve, you know? And then I don't have to bring that kind of like anger or frustration into my day-to-day life, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, as somebody who has seen Stick to Your Guns plenty of times, like, what's ironic is a Stick to Your Guns show, or any hardcore show for that matter, is a very positive experience for me. I love the camaraderie, my friends at a Stick to Your Guns show, just getting lost in the performance and having that release and escapism from the world. It almost seems like when you promote yourself, you create an atmosphere that's totally contradictory to the world in which you sing.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel you on that.
I have a few more questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
If that's cool. But when it comes to, this is sort of like a debate I like to have with artists, going back to sort of like the evolution that you sort of have within Stick to Your Guns. Because again, the evolution, for what it's worth, up to now is really something to behold. Can you dictate your own evolution? Do you have control over that? Or does evolution just kind of happen naturally?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. Like there's a saying that my dad used to say, like, it compromises when everyone's unhappy. And it's like, obviously I know that's not his saying, that's like from something, I don't know what, but he used to say that. And I think that's really how when you're in a band, you know, it's like you have to you're learning how to manage who you are. You're learning how to like not take up the whole space, you know what I mean? Because you have to imagine, like, there's 4 other people with you generally, right? For Stick to Your Guns, it's a 5-person band. Everyone wants to, for the most part, get to the same finish line, but we all might have different routes on how to get there, right? So you're always compromising and you're always trying to figure out how do you make everyone happy, you know? And so it's I think Stick to Your Guns never ever sounded the way any of us wanted it.
That's the best saying. That should be like your slogan. That should be written, if, you know, hopefully you guys go around for another 20, 30 years, but whenever the band is finished, that needs to be the epitaph of.
No, for sure. And it's like, you know, it's a good thing. It's, you know, it's worked for us and it's worked against us, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I think that we have a genuine voice that like is a distinct sound as a band that maybe not everyone does. So like that's something to be proud of. But at the same time, like in the age of nostalgia, we're not necessarily playing a type of, we don't have like a nostalgic sound. You know what I mean? We don't necessarily belong to one specific scene or another. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there are a lot of people who are like, I don't even know who you are or what you are. You know what I mean? Or what, like we're like on the fringe of every scene that makes us who we are.
Yeah, well,
Does
you're
that make
not.
sense?
You don't have a nostalgic sound yet, though. But mark my words, 10, 15 years from now, the When We Were Young festival, when it consists of Bad Omens headlining the thing with Code
Sure,
Orange,
sure,
Knocked
sure.
Loose, Stick to Your Guns,
Right.
like all of these new age hardcore bands, like you will have a nostalgic sound. It's in the making.
I got to be honest. I'm just flattered that you think we're gonna go for another 10 or 15 years. Fuck yeah, let's do it.
I mean, listen, coming from the New York hardcore capital of the world and seeing these hardcore frontmen who are old enough to be my grandparents at this point, I'm
Exactly.
like,
Pave the way for all of us, dude.
yeah, yeah. You can maybe take the hardcore kid out of the scene, but you can never take the scene out of the hardcore kid.
That's
So,
exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, yep. And to quote the great Lemmy Kilmister, if you think you're too old to rock and roll, you probably are. So, but as somebody who's seen you perform before, it's not just the songs I like and your albums, but it is the performance in and of itself. Is the hardcore frontman stage presence, if you will, is that something that you practice? Is that something that you can necessarily like rehearse for in a way, or does the energy just take you and you kind of like aren't even thinking about it when you're playing?
Yeah, it's almost like as you. Yeah, I don't ever like rehearse or anything like that. Like I don't ever do that. You kind of just do you start with the generic ones that everyone does, like the jumps and the windmills and the fucking whatever. Everyone, you start with those, and then you start branching out and trying to see what works and what doesn't. And then you eventually, when you've been doing it as long as I've been doing it, you kind of like start to acquire this like bag of tricks, and then you just pull them out as you see fit. Sometimes it calls for jumping, but then sometimes if there's too much water on stage and you're going to slip, then you gotta be doing something else. You can't just be standing there. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, I'm just a product of Terror being my favorite band. You know what I mean? So there's not many people who are more energetic than Terror, and that's another guy who's I don't want to say old. He's not old, but like he's letting me know that I can definitely keep doing it much longer than I am now. So it's like
it's funny.
Scott is a fucking legend, and he's like, I don't know, he puts a lot of these fucking young people to shame. I'll tell you that much.
And I've been wanting to get Terror on the show forever. Like I've checked off. There's only a few more hardcore bands I need to check off the list, and Terror is one of them. So Terror, please get on the show one day. But,
yeah, for sure. I'm sure they will.
Yep. But being a band, because like every hardcore band, you're starting off in like these DIY stages where there's just as many people on the stage as off the stage. But then like when you play at like an Irving Plaza or a Webster Hall where there's a barricade and security and all that, does that maybe change the sort of hardcore show, or in your case, the stick to your guns experience?
I mean, like, look, I don't like the barricade. You know what I mean? And like, we never request it. In fact, we always ask that we always say we don't want it. And a lot of the time now we get like, last time we had you here and there was no barricade, someone got hurt and they tried to sue us and blah, 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 blah. So it's like, it's at the point now where I'm just like, damn, sucks. You know what I mean? Like I don't, it's not that, to me, it doesn't ruin the show for me. I know that it would be a better show without it, but I know that like, that's just like a mental barrier for, you know what I mean? Like, that's just something, just get over it. Try to get rid of it. If you can't, get over it and just figure out a way to like, connect with the crowd. Because I do understand it. It is like a weird feeling when there's just like, you're on stage trying to like go fucking nuts, and then there's just like this gap of no energy. It's like, that's where all the energy, it's like an energy trough. Your energy falls into it and their energy falls into it. And it's like, you got to figure out a way to bridge that little gap there. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then the final question I wanted to ask you, I probably should have asked it a little earlier. It's kind of going back to the lyrics and songwriting and all that, but a Stick to Your Guns song captures a moment. It is a moment that can't be replicated, and I could tell that you put your emotions into it. But if you're working on a song for a long period of time and you have to tweak it and, then of course, bring it out and replicate the song on tour every night, do you find it more difficult to keep that same initial spark of the idea or that same emotion that sparked if you're working on something for an extended period of time or have to play it forever?
I've completely changed my mindset on songwriting. It's first of all, I recognize it as something like completely essential. You know what I mean? Songwriting. It's like, imagine your graduation or a wedding or a funeral or any moment in your life, right? Now take the music out of it. It's like, the fuck is it now? You know what I mean? It's like we have all as people collectively decided that music makes our morning drive to work bearable so that we want to blow our fucking brains out at our job or whatever. It's like, we've all agreed that music is essential to like living, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it's like, I recognize it as something like profound, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to take it so seriously that I'm like, take the humor out of it almost, you know what I mean? Or like, maybe that's a wrong word to use, but like, that's kind of what I mean. It's like, I don't want to think like I'm fucking Albert Einstein working on some great, like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it's like, I like to work hard at my craft. And I think writing songs for 20 years has made me better. And I feel like I have a lot of tools, but like, I try not to be the tortured artist. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to get the point across. And if I can't, if it starts taking too long, I put it in the garden, so to speak. I put it to the side and I just let it sit there for a minute and I let it do its own thing and I move on to something else. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to sit and like fixate and tweak until it's like, it's got to be perfect. Like, I've given up on perfection. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's more like it's an innate feeling. I need to feel something. If I feel something, it's good. Go get it out there.
Yeah.
But if I don't, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't search for perfection but
sure.
like at the same time, also don't settle at the same time. There is that sort of that dichotomy. And it's funny you mentioned the tortured artist thing, because I feel like that tortured artist thing is now becoming so cliche to the point, like,
yeah.
I almost want like a rich kid who's been happy 24/7 to almost be like the next big thing to happen in punk rock at this point, to really sort of stand out, you know what I mean? Because
no, for sure it's definitely tough. Like, I just like people who come out and say it, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, I like music dripping in metaphor too. Like, I like when something is said beautifully or whatever, but I also like it when someone just motherfucking says it straight and says it how it is. And like, I feel their energy more so than I feel like they're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I'm less impressed by how many big words you know and more impressed by like, can you make me feel something can you connect with me? You know what I mean? Or can I connect with you or whatever?
yeah, sometimes
yeah.
Sometimes the simplest explanation is the best.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
But before we go, I want to not only thank you so much for your time and for an excellent conversation, but as a fan, thank you for your music for all of these years. Thank you for 20 plus years of just kick-ass hardcore music that has informed us, enlightened us, inspired us, and deepened us. Is there just anything else with the release of Keep Planting Flowers that we could expect from Stick to Your Guns in the near future, if you're allowed to say at this very moment, of course?
I mean, just a whole lot of touring. We're going everywhere too. We're going to the big cities. We're going to the small cities. So if we don't go to your city, then I don't know where you live. You know? So be sure to come check if you can. You know what I mean? If not, then just stay safe and try to live a happy life.
Yeah, hell yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. Stick to your guns. Keep Planting Flowers, out 2025. Be sure to pick it up then when supplies last forever. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.